Right, so I've started peeling off all the seam sealer and getting rid of any rust that's underneath it. All up in the arches seems to be nice. I've had a dug about and nothing's coming off. But around the toe eye, up here, the bracing between the wing, what I've done is I've stripped it down with rust and then I've cure rusted it with hammerite cure rust, and that turns the metal back into solid rather than rusty. See any of the brackets that I've done, and we're getting rid of any bits of rust, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stone chip it, primer it and paint it. Right, moving back onto the arches. So I've stripped any rust that I could see, any surface rust you can see on the bracing between the wings, the toe eye. We've got a bit on a few brackets and some mounts, so I've stripped all that back. And just a quick one for you, just people think they have a look in the arch like that, they can't see any rust, but have a little dig around, because you will find underneath seam sealer that you will have in certain places you'll have rust where water collects, and that's what happened over here. So yeah, have a proper look around. So here's just a couple of the products that I'm using. If no one's familiar with this is brilliant stuff. Basically, it's a acid that you put onto pure rust, and as long as obviously it's not got holes and stuff in it, it will turn the rust into solid metal again, so you can paint over it. It also acts as a primer, but I always etch primer over the top of it. We've got seam sealer, brushable seam sealer, so when you peel back seam sealer at the welds or the joins in between the panels, you can brush the seam sealer back on and it looks like factory. And then we've got the stone chip. This is really important, especially in arches. You want to be recoating your arches with the stone chip, and it's like a flexible coating that you can paint over the top, and it keeps it looking like a factory finish. Right, so we've laid down some etch primer to the bare metal to give it a key. What I've done here is I've put some seam sealer on the joins between the panels, which I've removed to cure the rust. And now I'm going to lay down some stone chip, let that dry, and then we can get some primer on to paint it. Right, so the rear beam's all stripped down. I've removed all the hubs, the brakes and everything. So you can see how nasty it is. We've got time to get this up to a good standard, because this ain't going in my car like this. It's absolutely disgusting. So we're going to get rid of these crappy rubber bushings at the back, because I've got some Powerflex ones to go on there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press that out, and then we're going to start stripping the beam down, ready to make it look pretty. So that's the rear beam done. Looks a bit more fresh, doesn't it? So what I've done is, as you can see, is I have polybushed the rear bushes and removed them crappy rubber ones that come with it. So put Powerflex ones in and that. Got rid of all the cruddy rust. You see how fresh it looks now? So I'll get it back, start bolting things onto this and get it back on the car. So I suppose it's time that I better start cleaning up this underneath. Already scraped off a bit of sealer and some tar there already. So got to get rid of any of this surface rust, and let's transform the underneath of here into a fresh painted rust-free car. Right, so after spending way too long on my back doing this underneath this car, we're finally getting somewhere now. So it had a lot of surface rust that I've been grinding back, and the only way to really get rid of rust, especially rust that starts to eat into the metal, is to grind it. So I've been grinding it back. You can see the marks. So I've removed a lot of the seam sealer. As you can see how clean it is under here now. So these are the sections on the legs that I've ground right back, got rid of any seam sealer. Same on this side. These are the mounts that the rear beam brackets will bolt to. So I've removed all the seam sealer, all the tar. I've ground it right back so that the metal's nice and fresh, silver metal, no rust at all. So now we're going to stick some Cure Rust and etch primer just to make sure, because I don't want the rust ever coming back. But just a little thing for you to look for. Underneath here where the beam mounts to the chassis leg, that's where I found most of the rot. That's all been ground out now, and it's just something to look for, because these cars are now getting to like 15, 16, 17 years old, and that could end the car's life, because as soon as the mounting point on the rear beam is rotten, it's game over for the car. So keep an eye on that, get under there and check it if you want to keep the car for a long time. So we're finally getting somewhere under here now. You can see the back section, it's been primered. That's in zinc rich primer, 90% zinc. It's also an etched primer. So I wanted to show you the comparison between the prime section and the unprimed section. All the rust has been treated. Everything's been removed, all the tar, the seam sealer from the joins, and it looks like there's still rust on here, but it's not. It's like a brand seam sealer that they used underneath the Vauxhalls. So I've tried to keep as much galvanised coating as I can that was unaffected. As you can see, the chassis legs, they've all been stripped down of all the tar, and literally every bit of rust or surface rust has been treated, ground out, and now we're getting it into a zinc primer so that it doesn't rust again. So yeah, I thought I'd give you a quick look at it before I primed it, and I'm going to seam sealer it, but it's all got to be done after being primed, and then I'll show you the results after it's done. So we've got the hole underneath now is in a zinc rich etched primer. What I've done is I've just went round and seam sealed any of the joints of the seam sealer that I had to remove to get rid of any surface rust. So you can see up in the corners and any of the joins between any of the panels. So they've all been seam sealed. I've seam sealed where the panel has been for the rear wheel well, and I've gone all the way around, and that's totally sealed now. So now we're going to epoxy prime it, and we'll be ready for a base coat, which is long coming because this has taken a very long time. So that's the final coat of stone chip under here. I think I've used 2 litres now of stone chip. I've done the hole underneath twice. I've also done round. Yeah, so I'm actually liking the black look, but I think it's going to look fresh when it's all painted up in the flame red. So I'm going to let this dry now, give it a day to dry, and we're going to get a coat of red on it. I can start putting the rear end back together, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's the final coat of stone chip. I've put 2 coats on. I've used 2 litres of stone chip now, I think, and that's going to give it a nice protection. It should last another 15 years. So I've done every little nook and cranny that I could get to, and so basically we're now ready for the top coat. A nice fresh red flame finish, and it should look epic. So we're going to mix up the paint now. I've got flame red in 2K, so the colour code's 79L, and what you've got to do is you've got to mix 2 parts of the base coat with 1 part of the hardener, because it's a 2-pack paint, and 10% base coat thinners, and then you mix it up in a nice pot like that, stick it through a strainer, and you've got a perfect base coat to use. This is the gun I use with an air pressure regulator, but I can't show you how I mix it up because I won't be able to talk to you at the same time because I've got a mask on. So I'm just going to mix this up, and I'll show you how it comes out. So this is the finished painted underneath. So sorry I didn't show you me painting it, but when I'm in my PPE gear and all my mask on, and I don't really want to stop, take my gloves off, and have to show you halfway through painting. So this has had 2 coats now of 2-pack flame red, and you can see this is straight out the gun, and nice the finish is. So it should give it a lot more protection for the years. I've obviously done in the arches as well. So we come around here. You can see up in the arches. This is drying now, so I'm going to let this dry, give this 24 hours to dry. And as you can see, you can't beat an actual 2-pack paint rather than a crappy spray can. You can appreciate how nice it's come out, and it's took a lot of work, as you see, to get it done like this, but all that work is going to pay off, because you can see how thick the paint is on, and it's going to protect this car for a lot of years. So I'm looking forward to starting to get back together now. So now the underneath's all nicely painted, it's time to get the thing back together. So I'm going to start with the fuel tank. So this is the old fuel tank that come off the car, and this is the new one that's going on it. This one's been chemically cleaned, it's completely stripped inside, so there's any sediment, anything, if you want to know what the inside of the tank looks like. So now I'm taking apart all the fuel cage assembly. Stripped it down. This is the one that goes into the tank right at the bottom. This is the one that normally isn't removed, but I wanted to take it out to clean it and clean the inside of the tank. And I was going to put a stock fuel pump in, but I decided to get a Walbro instead. So I've got Walbro and a brand new filter for it. The only difference is, you can see, the Walbro is a lot bigger. So this part of the cage up here has to be removed. And the same down the bottom here, you have to grind out to allow this to fit. So that's the stock one, goes straight in nicely, fits in there nice, and the Walbro doesn't. So I'm going to modify that now, and then I'm going to fit this fuel pump so we can get back in the tank. So that's the fuel pump fitted, brand new filter on it. I've got a nice new uncut plug, they always break. So you can see how it fits in there nicely now, no movement. So that's how you fit the Walbros to the Astra Turbo fuel pump cases. So that's the fuel tank fully assembled. Obviously I've got a couple more pipes to put on, but that's I do that when the tank's under the car, for the fuel filler neck and the breather system for the tank. But new fuel pump, clean tank. I've got a nice fresh heat shield to go on it as well, but I don't want to put that on yet because it gets scratched up on the bottom. So that's the fuel tank back together, as you see. New pump, cleaned up all the lines, blew them out, and I've got a nice new tank cover for it. That was really hard to get hold of. So that should look fresh, should look better, a bit better than the old one. So it's about time we get this on the car now and see what it looks like. New tank cover looking fresh. So I've gave the fuel filler neck a bit of refurbish. I've stripped all down all the vent system and blew it all out with the airline. I've also replaced the Jubilee clips because you can see that these have had their day and the one from the end here just snapped off. So I'll put some nice new ones on. I'm going to get this back on the car. So the assembly has started. I've got the nicely refurbished fuel filler neck on. All the breather system's been cleaned out. So I've got the fuel tanks in. I'm going to get underneath and I'll show you that, and you can see it's looking really nice under there. So underneath the car, managed to get the fuel tank in, got all the breather lines and everything on for the fuel tank, filler neck, put new Jubilees on filler neck because they was corroded. The fuel lines have all been cleaned, they've been cleaned out and blown out of an airline. I've got my nice powder coated fuel tank straps, they're all on. And as you can see, the fuel tank cover, that's on as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get on with reassembling the rear beam. And if you want to keep up to date with that, then join me on my Instagram. I always posting up stories and you'll see a more up-to-date version of that. And also while I'm under here, I'd like to say a big thanks to my new subscribers. I've had a lot of subscribers since my last video. And if you could just drop us a like, or share this video with your friends, that will help out a lot. It just gets a lot more people viewing the video that wouldn't normally see it. So I'm going to get this video up, as I said, for you now. Enjoy watching it, and I'll be putting up the new video a lot sooner than this one, as this one took a lot of time because of the painting. And I'll see you soon.